Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. Today I am going to be sharing with you my October TBR. October and just like the autumn time in general is one of my favorite times of the year, but especially for reading. I always save all of my like spooky books for this time of year, and spooky books are my favorite books to read. So naturally this is my like favorite time of the year when it comes to literature. So I've got quite a lot of books on my October TBR, which is very overly ambitious considering how my reading has been lately, which is not great. So highly unlikely I will get to all of these books, but to be honest with you, it's kind of like I'm giving myself options because I definitely do not want to land myself in a reading slump at my favorite time of year for reading. So like if I don't like a book within the first 25 pages, let's say, usually I'd give it a good 50 pages, but we're gonna say 25. I'm just gonna put it down and move on to the next one because I don't want to land myself in a reading slump at my favorite time of the year. So that is why there are so many books on my list, because I'm giving myself lots of options and lots of space for rejection. So let's just jump into it, starting with the book that I am currently reading. I'm almost done with it, but it's also only like 150 pages, and that is Poison for Breakfast by Lemony Snicket. This is a book that just recently came out by him. To be honest with you, I didn't know that this author had written any other books outside of A Series of Unfortunate Events. If you don't know, Lemony Snicket is a pen name, and he's kind of like his own character. Like in A Series of Unfortunate Events, he kind of inserts himself into the story, not just as the author, but like as a character in the book. And so this book is actually about Lemony Snicket, and the premise of it is that he has eaten breakfast and then he receives a note that says, "You had poison for breakfast," or something along those lines. And now he is just kind of walking around the town, seeing different people and wondering, is he going to die? It is like, it's barely a mystery book, but on the inside flap it describes it as a mystery book and also like a philosophy book. To me, there's not a lot of plot happening in this book. It's like mostly Lemony Snicket going off on all of these philosophical tangents that on one hand it's very reminiscent of how, you know, A Series of Unfortunate Events is written. So for me there's a little bit of nostalgia in reading this book because I haven't read his specific, very specific kind of writing style in a very long time. But on the other hand, there's not a lot of plot happening in this book, so it is a little bit boring for me, not gonna lie. But nonetheless, I'm like 30 pages from the ending maybe, so I'm gonna finish it. I'm hoping that there's gonna be some like fun sort of twist at the ending. Like the whole point of this book is just to kind of make you think. So I'm really excited to see how it is going to conclude. But either way, this is the first book that is on my TBR and I'm almost done with it. Next up, I actually have 3 books that were all sent to me from either publishers or authors. I am really trying to prioritize reading the books that are sent to me from publishers or authors. I now have an entire book shelf just dedicated to these books so that I can slowly make my way through them, because I do feel like I tend to neglect them a little bit. So I actually talked about all 3 of these books in my most recent haul, so I'm not going to go too in depth in them. I'm just going to go over them really quickly. So the first one that we have is called Guised Passage. This is like a survival story in which we're following a group of friends that go on a hike, and then I think it takes a pretty sinister turn. It seemed like a good one for this time of the year. We also have People of Abandoned Character, in which the title is printed on the back of the book. This is historical fiction. I think it's like a historical mystery in which we follow a main character who marries this man, and when they get back from their honeymoon, he starts acting kind of strangely, and then a woman turns up dead, and our main character is a little bit concerned that her husband might be Jack the Ripper. I am so excited to read this book. I really hope it doesn't let me down because I have hyped it up so much, but it just has such an interesting premise to me and I'm super excited for it. And then finally we have Arsenic and Adobo. This is another mystery book. I've heard it described as a cozy mystery, which I've never read before, so I'm pretty excited to pick this up. I don't know what it's about though, so we're just gonna move on from this one. And then finally on my TBR for October, I actually have 3 Stephen King books. Now, I'm definitely not going to get to all 3 of them, but like I said, I'm giving myself options just in case I am not into one of them. I will have another Stephen King book to read this month. So I would absolutely love to read it this month. I tried to read this last October. As you can see, I got about 50 pages into it and I just wasn't vibing with the writing style, which really threw me because every single other Stephen King book that I've read, I've loved his writing. So the fact that it wasn't working for me in this book was really upsetting because I really want to love this book. I just rewatched the original It film the other day and I really enjoyed that movie as well. So I really wanted to like this book, but when I tried reading it last October, it just wasn't working for me. So I decided to put it down in the hopes that maybe it just wasn't the right time for me to read this book. So I'm going to try and pick it up again this month, but like I said earlier, if I don't like it, I'm gonna put it down because this seems like a sure way to land myself into a reading slump if I try and force myself through a book this size. So yeah, I'm really hoping it'll work out for me, and last year was just like a fluke. I wasn't in the mood to read that kind of book. I really want to love it, you have no idea. So just in case that book doesn't work out for me, I still want to pick up a Stephen King this month. So the second one on my list is Misery. This is probably the most recommended Stephen King book for me. Specifically, both actually the film has been recommended to me so many times and the book. I've never seen I've never seen the movie and I've never read the book, obviously, but there was a time I do remember when I was a child in which one of my parents must have been watching the movie on the TV and I just happened to wander into the living room at a very specific scene that has stuck in my brain ever since. Let's just say that. I'm not going to be specific, but that one scene has lived in my head since I was a very small child. So again, I have pretty high expectations for this book just because so many people have recommended it to me, and also because I have like great trauma from a child seeing this one particular scene from the film. So I'm pretty excited. I'm hoping it's going to be good. It's not that long, so I feel like it's going to be a pretty fast-paced book. I also didn't explain what it was about because I just kind of assumed that most people know what It and Pennywise and like all that jazz is. If you don't know what Misery is, I'm pretty sure, again, I haven't seen the film and I don't read synopsises, but I'm pretty sure it's about like this woman who gets so obsessed with this particular author that she ends up like kidnapping him, or somehow he ends up at her house and she has like kidnapped him and is now sort of like torturing him into continuing to write the book series that she likes or something along those lines. But it's like about a crazed fangirl basically, and it sounds pretty interesting, so I'm pretty excited for it. And then the final Stephen King book that I have on my TBR, just in case both of those books do not work out for me, is The Institute. This is a book that I just picked up recently. I actually think it's one of his like most recent releases. I don't know if it's the most recent one, but it was definitely released within like the last year or so, and this one is super interesting sounding. It's about a boy called Luke who gets like kidnapped from his house, and he wakes up in this room that looks just like his room, but outside of his door is like a hallway with a bunch of other doors, with a bunch of other rooms, with other kids that were like kidnapped, and I think they all have like special abilities. And there's this thing that's called the front half, which is where they're all at, but then there is the back half where like if kids get taken there, like they don't come back. So it sounds really interesting. I hope I explained that okay. Last time when I talked about this in my haul, I just read directly off the back because I feel like that's the best way for me to explain this book because it does sound so interesting and I want to give it justice. But yeah, that's kind of like my own summarized version of it. So I'm pretty excited for all of these Stephen King books, and like if it doesn't work out, maybe I can actually pick up both of these books and read them in October, especially especially if I enjoy one, I feel like I'm going to be on a bit of a Stephen King kick and I'll just want to keep reading his books. So those are the 3 Stephen King books that I picked out. I do actually also own Desperation, but that is another like super chunky book. Like I don't think it's quite the same size as it, but it's still like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages that I just don't know if it's the best time of year for me to try to pick that one up, because I don't really know what it's about. Like all of these other books, I have a good idea of what they're about, but Desperation, I don't really know. I don't think it was made into a movie, so like I have even less of a concept of it. So that's my reasoning as to why it's not on my list. Not that you probably even cared to hear about it. Either way, that was my October TBR. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know, have you read any of these books? Which ones do you think I should prioritize on my list, since we all know I won't actually get to all of them? And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!